Welcome to the webinar this morning for you guys out in the US and those in Europe. Good evening. Okay, not going to take too much time over the introductions, being as though we are running a little bit late. Just going to take you through to the quick agenda. I think Cynthia already made a brief introduction. We're talking about engaging the workforce and how to drive HR efficiencies through an ESS, employee self-service solution here at Oxfordshire County Council based in the UK. And a quick agenda, well, we'll just have a few introductions and then talk about some of the business challenges that Oxfordshire County Council faced. We've got an integrated demo within the presentation today. We'll go on to talk about lessons learned and how we can do things better. With hindsight is always a great thing, and then we'll take any questions at the end. Also, please feel free to use the chat facility to post any of your questions whilst the presentation is going on. Okay, in terms of presenters today, we've got myself, Jag Harar, the project manager from Cordis, Andy Fairweather, senior project manager from the business side at Oxfordshire County Council, and unfortunately John Leggett has not been able to join today, but he's the ICT or the IT solutions contingent in terms of the representation from Oxfordshire County Council. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Just a little bit about Cordis. We are headquartered in the UK, but we do have offices in wider Europe and out in New York. We are a software vendor. We do try to provide software packages off the shelf for implementation and deployment, and of those packages we have 10 packages or applications which are certified by SAP. What we've managed to do here at Oxfordshire County Council, which is an achievement from a Duet Enterprise perspective, both from and recognised both by SAP and Microsoft, is that the user base is greater than 5,000 users. And just some of the other glory that we've got, some silverware that we've managed to accumulate over the last couple of years, some awards from Sapphire in Madrid, Innovation Customer Award, and then an RDS, the Rapid Deployment Services or Solutions Program we are a partner of. Okay, moving through. So this is where where Cordis Solutions we make our initial engagement from. This is our standard applications in the Cordis livery. We've got a Windows tiled effect page there, which is our landing page, home page, where you can configure your applications to get quick access, and then just some of the screens that we've got there from a data representation, management data perspective, and then the bottom screen there is for my expenses. So this is where we first started the journey with Oxfordshire many months ago, and they obviously liked what we presented to them. And just moving through to the next slide, I can give you a quick glimpse of where we kind of ended up at. So this was this is the Oxfordshire County Council's homepage, their intranet homepage, where across the top you can see some of the components where we've got pay, my details, expenses, absence, there's a learning solution there, etc. So this is all the details that, all the components that we've implemented or will be going live with in the near future. I'm going to pass it over to Andy Fairweather from Oxfordshire County Council to give his version of the truth.
Thanks very much, Jag. So, a bit of context really around Oxfordshire. Oxfordshire County Council is a large local government department supporting the County of Oxfordshire, which is a large administrative unit just west of London. Residents, customers, we've got in excess of 500,000 people who we are supporting in a whole range of services. Very large staff group, so almost 20,000 staff in total, 5,000 core staff that are now using these tools. and very diverse service offerings. So we offer everything from sort of fire and rescue services, social care for kind of children and adults, highways and transport, libraries, and the list goes absolutely on and on. And as we'll see in a minute, in terms of the challenge of how you get people to take up these tools, engage with them, release some of the efficiencies around it, we're working across 200 different sites across the county. So lots of diverse services, lots of diverse locations, a real challenge in how we roll out the tools. Going back to this point last year, we started to sort of develop our strategic vision of what we wanted to achieve before we went out to kind of look at what software was available. Some of the key drivers was that all of our HR finance information is held on SAP. All of our processes relate to SAP, even if we don't have all this full workflow around them. And then we've got a large investment in terms of Microsoft Windows, the Office suite, some of the additional software there, and beginning to start investing in SharePoint. So what technology could we buy that kind of added the greatest value from those existing investments? I think the other thing is often organisations lose sight of the internal customer, so our external customers can do a whole range of self-serve activities online. They can apply for a school place, they can reserve library books, they can report defects with roads, lights, fittings, etc. Why don't we have that same investment and offer to our internal customers who are receiving services from HR, finance, ICT, procurement? And I think we had a real driver around how we could make things easier for them. Another challenge is, a whole range of staff on different conditions, in different sort of cultural ways of working, different levels of computer skills. This system's going to affect them all. Is there a type of technology that they're going to find easier to use that's going to need less training? Can we even get away without having formal training? Could they just go on and use it in the same way that perhaps you have an experience of Amazon or the like, where you aren't doing a training course? So we really set ourselves quite a high bar in terms of rolling this tool out with the least amount of training possible. And then we've got a lot of investment in our new intranet, which is done on a Drupal open source platform. How can we present these tools seamlessly through the intranet? Obviously, I think with any kind of self-service, online self-service project, you're trying to release efficiencies around processes, you're trying to standardize things, you're trying to promote a kind of more flexible and agile workforce where people can log into the tools from home, from different locations. Looking at all of these as a whole, we really came to the strong view that there was only really one way forward, and that was with the Duet technology and really with Cordis, who were kind of leading the marketplace. Because, as I say, it builds on the investment we've got in SAP. It's got the kind of look and feel that you might expect from a Microsoft product, which had a lot of credibility with us, with our staff base. They're used to using Outlook, Word, and the like. And in terms of being able to really deploy this through SharePoint and seamlessly through the internet, it was just leaps and bounds ahead of the competitor technology. Challenges, I think with any technology project, it's really around understanding that spec, and I think where you're talking about HR processes in a larger organisation with a large turnover, you've potentially got different terms of employment, different processes, really engaging the right people from the business early on to make sure that those requirements are right is going to save you time in deployment. It's going to save you any additional costs or changes. And I think we kind of got that right, and that's led to us being able to have a very rapid deployment here in Oxfordshire. The timescales were challenging. We wanted to be able to give 5,000 people access to their historic pay slips, their most up-to-date pay slips, and their P60, which is an annual national tax and employment document. And we had to do that in about 3 or 4 months, which we've achieved, which I think was a very tight timescale. And we're rolling out further components throughout the year as we go on, and I'll show you those in a minute. And I think with all of these kind of projects where you're talking about a large number of users, it's really around the change management. So we really got out there face to face. We did some demos about how the tools work, very light touch, and we think that staff will be able to go away from those demos and use the tools without any help. We we've even had feedback the staff who haven't attended have really been able to log on easily and use it. So lots of positive feedback coming in around ease of use, and that's sort of validated our decisions around this technology that we've gone in the right direction. And you always are going to have resistance, you know, if you don't have self-service in place at the minute, if the technology that you've got is very different from where you're headed to, how do you take people with you? Well, it's really been about showing people how it looks, how it works, and the benefits associated with that. And as I say, lots of positive feedback around the ease of use, the look and feel. And we're doing some initial work to kind of look at what the time savings are, but it's looking like 20 to 30% quicker, say, to do an online expenses claim. Multiply that across the business, that really is significant savings. So the scope of the project, as I touched on earlier, e-pay slips and ability to see your P60 annual document. That went live at the end of May. The ability to view and edit information about yourself that's drawn live from SAP in real time. That kind of key information that you don't always have access to currently, you've got to ring up someone in HR and speak to. Actually, you can access that about yourself and about anybody who reports through to you, really speeding up a lot of other business tasks. And in the next week or so, we'll see business and travel expenses going online, so some very complicated rules there around what people can and can't claim, simplified by a very easy online tool, and later in the year, absence management, including sickness absence management as well. So this is our solution. This is the main home page of our intranet, our internal web pages. And this loads up automatically on everyone's computer, so it's their kind of front door into the whole organisation. And what we did very early on in the project was try to listen to kind of staff around what they wanted from the tools. And what they said is, we don't want another desktop icon to an isolated application that fires up that staff will or won't engage with. We want access to be front and centre through the home page, so when our staff log onto their computers in the morning, it's single sign-on and they're in the tools all the time. No need to be prompted for additional passwords. You'll also see some little red, kind of almost Facebook type notification icons. You'll see a 1 on pay, so that appears at the end of every month, showing you've got a pay slip. You've got a 3 on expenses and a 3 on absence. So as a manager, I've got 3 items each that I need to kind of look at there. And when these notifications show, they change the way that the navigation buttons work. So it's really simple. When a 1 showing on pay, my pay slip loads up. And when a 3 showing on expenses, and I just click on it here, so I'm just going to move the mouse over. There are the 3 items. I can look in at the full details of the expense claims. I can approve or reject them and send them back to the person who's initiated them for kind of any amendments. And I can easily get back through to the home page again. Okay, sometimes our staff aren't on the home page and they want to have easy access back into the tools. As you'll see at the top here, there's a black banner and it's showing who's logged in. So our test user here, Robert Hill, is logged in, and if I click there, a little web icon opens up, again repeats the notifications, and as I say, this is available on every page, and they're individual items. So if I click on pay, again, no need to understand where I'm going, my pay slip just loads up. If I click on absence, I can see any items waiting there, and if I click on expenses, the screen that I just showed you would appear. So lots of positive feedback around the ease of navigation and the integration there. This is what it's going to look like for staff most of the time if you are a manager, so you don't have any notifications coming through. It's not the end of the month. And we've got these main visible icons that draw you through into the tool. So if we move over onto pay, there's no notification, so it acts in a different way. And I come through to what we call a landing page. Here you've got a mix of OCC web pages, so some of the most popular pages, the most visited pages, pay scales, paydays and deadlines, pension information, seamlessly linked to access to your payslip and to your P60 here. And what we really heard from staff is, when I'm looking at my payslip, I don't want to be in a separate system and then have to navigate back to the intranet, load up the right page and understand some of the pay scale rules around that, the paydays and deadlines, pension information. I want it all in one place. And that's what we've really gone for here. So trying to remove that distinction between the tools and the web pages, it's just completely seamless. So if we click here on my payslip, you'll see a full PDF rendition of your payslip. And if we just zoom in a bit, on the top right hand side I've got a little PDF icon. I can very easily print this off, download it, email it through to a home email account, save it onto my personal folder. There's also a drop down menu here. The way we've chosen to set this up is you can see 3 years worth of payslip. So if I was to click on this arrow, it would expand and show me 36 months. If I click on any of those months, my new payslip will instantly load up. Again, drawing data from SAP in real time, but presenting it in this kind of really easy to use web front end. Navigating back here in the UK, we have an annual statement of your salary, which is known locally as a P60. Lots of equivalent documents in similar countries. So if we click on P60 here, it loads up, and again I've got the option to print it, save it, download it, attach it and email it out. I can also click here on the date range and look at historic P60s, and if I click on those, just load through instantly. Okay, back through onto the home page. I've gone back via the breadcrumb and come here. If I click on my details, I've got 5 key areas around information. This is what we've chosen to show in Oxfordshire: information you can see, information you can edit yourself, and some protected information that you can request to have edited for you based on our business rules. So if I wanted to go and look at my bank details, I could click there and see them. It's drawing them from SAP in real time. When I click edit and amend those bank details and click save, when they show as new on the page, that means it's gone into SAP instantaneously and my next wage will go into the new bank account. So really seamless, no delays in data transfer. And again, I can change my home address, my next of kin details, my emergency contact details. And some of this information can be seen through by my line manager, which really helps them kind of manage the team. I can also maintain a vehicle, which I can then claim expenses again, and I can access through and update the details there. Probably the most important page here, if I click through, is personal details. So this is your kind of overview of your key information about yourself. Some organisations, you may have people in 2 different posts. That's quite common in Oxfordshire, so I can see my primary employment, or I can click here where the cursor is showing, and I can see information about my second job. So really can cater for a lot of different eventualities. If I manage a team, just where I'm moving the icon here, the actual little cursor, I could choose and see other people in my team, see contractual information about them, home details, etc. Really useful information for managing my team. We've got a new phone book that's gone live, which draws for information from SAP and from other systems, and this is the single place to both go and update your information that's held on SAP and information that's held on ICT systems. So we've been able to bring this all together to have an improved user experience. So I can upload my photo and that will show through into the phone book. I can tell my colleagues some information about me and that will show through. But I've got restricted information here as well that only I can see. Okay, just a little increased view there. What you'll notice here as well is a couple of help buttons. So far to date, we haven't written any online guidance, we haven't done any online videos, we haven't done any formal training. We've been out to speak to staff, but actually what we've got here is some contextual help buttons, little pieces of help where you need it most, just to guide you through what to do in that particular component. It seems to be working really well. Very few support calls coming through to ICT, far less than we've experienced with other similar high-profile launches. So just finally, I'm just going to cut out some screens, but I'll just click on expenses. No notifications showing, no need to log in, really easy. And I'm coming through to the landing page for expenses. I've got 3 parts of the tools themselves, 3 subcomponents as you might call them. I can claim an expense. As a manager, I can approve an expense. I can look through at my expense history, see what's pending, what's been paid, what's archived. But actually, you've got some organisation rules around what people can and can't claim, all of the context there. I don't need to navigate out to find that. That's here, and I can go straight through and see it all in one place. So let's just click on Claim Expenses, and I'll jump a couple of screens actually. So I've set up the expense period. I've now made a mileage claim. What we had was staff using paper forms and then using various different mapping applications to work out their journeys and transposing this onto paper at great time and cost. So what you've got here, because of the Microsoft element, is you've got a real-time link through into Bing Maps. It will recognise local zip codes, or postcodes as they're called in the UK. It will recognise key buildings known to Bing Maps. And you can add various via points and destinations to build up your journey and calculate that for you in real time, drawing the information through and then paying you against the correct rate in SAP behind the scenes. You can also allocate these expenses against different cost centres, different internal orders, so lots of flexibility there, lots of ability to tailor these components to fit your local business rules. So that kind of concludes the demo element, and I'll just hand back over to Jag now.
Andy, thank you for the brief but informative session and demo there on the solution that we've implemented. And I have to say, when we kicked this off, we started to engage about September last year, and the actual project itself got kicked off in December, and we've been live with the first couple of components for just over 6 or 7 weeks now. And you know, the feedback, as Andy has mentioned, it has been positive. There's been no quick reference guides, no user training. It's a simple, self-intuitive solution for the 5,000 users that will be fully engaged with this tool. Okay, some of the lessons learned and the feedback that we've had in a little bit more detail then. If we could just switch to the next slide. And I think the first couple, Andy, over to you in terms of the approach to procure the solution, and you know, I think some of the things that we'll add in there. Why did you go with Duet Enterprise over a typical SAP offering of ESS, MSS, or even further afield to more competitive solutions, Workday, SuccessFactors, etc., etc. We can talk a little bit about those, but over to you, back to you about the approach to procuring the solution.
Okay, so I think Jag's absolutely right. Your organisation's going to have its own context, where you're up to with your current ICT investments, where you want to head with things, and you've got to look at what's right for you, what are the things you want to achieve, and what technology is going to give you the best chance of doing that. I think in Oxfordshire, we were late to come to self-service, very large investment in SAP, no desire to kind of move away. It's working really well. But a lot of challenges about how we get people using it, how we get it through the internet, and we looked at the whole range. We looked at SAP offerings, non-SAP offerings. You're going to have data transfer issues when it's non-SAP, and I think at that point it's fair to say that the SAP front end couldn't be deployed in such a sort of kind of seamless web-based approach. It didn't have the right look and feel, and Duet really stood out as the only software offering that was going to match those strategic drivers that I showed you earlier. I think with any kind of self-service project, you're going to do a whole series of data cleanse and audit. If this is information that hasn't been exposed to the organisation online, and we did that kind of due diligence over a 6-month period, so that when you go live, you don't have any reputational impacts around the data that people are seeing. And I think it's largely because in a large organisation, it's only as good as the data that's been provided through.
And also on that, Andy, I think the one thing we have got now with this solution is that the users can self-maintain the data, so there's an element of self-cleansing going on.
Yeah. If
there's something that you know, HR administrators haven't picked on, or we missed in the data cleanse itself, the users now can see their information. You know, it's visible on their screens, seamless integration, and they can update some of the data as well. Not everything. We do need to have an audit control on what they can and can't update, but some of the basic data, absolutely they can maintain.
I think that's absolutely right, Jag, and maybe it's counterintuitive, but when you give people visibility of this data and the ability to edit it or request it to be edited, you actually see the accuracy of your data increase, and you've got no rekeying on expense claims, these kind of things. So lots of positives there around the data. We spoke earlier about getting the right kind of specification, workflows, and it was really around engaging senior people in the organisation, the chief exec, about how they wanted to structure the workflow through the business. You're going to develop quirks in how things get approved and who perhaps takes on line management activities, and getting a steer from the top, getting a really efficient way that's not going to cause you lots of maintenance overheads, and is going to have the right kind of principles across your business about who is best placed to approve things, is going to pay off in the long run. So did a lot of work on the specification, and I would just emphasise, if you go down these kind of routes, really looking at workflow as early as possible. I think with any project you've got the challenge of how you deploy something alongside business as usual. You're often in the project team drawing staff away from the business, so you've got the right selection of experts, but you've potentially got to do HR support pack updates, you've got to run payroll alongside this, and getting your project plan timed so that it is sympathetic to the needs of the business is really critical. And although we've spoken a lot about it being really easy to use, you are going to have a challenge around communication, around change management, around resistance, and we've really driven very strongly on that. Been out to see almost half of the overall staff group face-to-face, taking them through it, done a lot of work, listened to people's concerns, and really sold the benefits and won those arguments. And I think the feedback coming through now, as I say, is really, really positive. So I like to think we've kind of done this whole project in the right kind of way.
And I think if I could just speak for ICT a little bit here now, John Leggett would probably he definitely would back me up if he was here now. In terms of the calls we've had through to the help desk, I think initially, well, there was no spike in calls after we've gone live at all. The response from the help desk is that they're saying that it's very good. It's not putting any further work or burden on their shoulders to support the system. So which is a positive result for us all here, I think, from a business perspective and a technology perspective.
I think absolutely you don't want to do a project on an efficiency basis and then actually have lots of maintenance issues around workflow, around the system, and have lots of sort of support overheads, and we just haven't seen that here, so it's been really positive.
And I think the single sign-on layer in the Duet Enterprise software certainly does help to control the log-on process, who's been validated, the extra validation screen that we put in, and with the national insurance number, your social security number, so you're actually initially validating who you are in the first instance when you log on to the system through your intranet homepage. So I think there's a lot of security built around it,
yeah.
and the Duet Enterprise layer does certainly help there. There's no doubt about that.
So I think it's been really nice with a lot of positive feedback internally. There's an example there on this page which you can have a look at. But what we're starting to see now is private sector organisations in the UK starting to come through to us, because we're one of the first companies, public or private, in the UK to have such a large deployment of this technology. Lots of other national and local government organisations coming through and being really excited about what they're actually seeing. And a certain amount of buzz, I think, in SAP and Microsoft about where this is headed and how nice this kind of deployment looks, especially with the intranet integration.
Okay, thanks for that, Andy. I think the next slide is questions and any answers we can provide. So, Cynthia, are you on the line there? Have you fielded any questions that we have?
Yes, there's a few questions, I guess, in relation to Andy's presentation on the priorities of which HR processes would you have delivered first, and how did you determine what were the priorities based on that?
Absolutely. So I think everyone's coming from a different point of view. If you've got paper processes in place across your organisation and very little technology, you're emailing things around as paper forms. We kind of did a cost-benefit analysis of what we thought we would get the most benefit from moving to online. We know that some organisations have a mixed offering, so they have some kind of partial online forms, but they haven't got a full deployment. So I think it's a bit of an assessment of your organisation and where you're up to. We knew that expenses was taking the most time. It was 3 different forms. It was taking time for people to find the form, to then fill it out. Lots of work across between a web application with mapping, And we don't have the final figures. We're working on those at the minute. We're doing a whole series of tests, but we think it's about 25% quicker. And we have 3,000 expense claims a month, so huge savings across the business. Lots more time savings as well as around approving it, because people are manually calculating that. So I would say go through an exercise locally about what is taking the most time. Have a look at the solutions and have a look where you think you're going to be able to save time. Some of the other elements are harder to quantify. So we know that by showing people this data that I showed you in my details, my data, there are going to be a lot of soft benefits around filling out other forms, around managing the team, where if you wanted that information currently, you'd have to ring up HR, so that's your time, it's the cost of the call, it's the cost of the HR professional's time to go and look for it, and often you're starting up a whole cycle of query around improving data, changing data, amending details. So lots of soft benefits around my details, and we'll be looking over the next year to try and firm those up and quantify those. So we have those 4 components. We also know that we've got issues really around annual leave, around sickness, around it not being done in a standardised way, around potentially a gap between the sickness levels we're having and what's being monitored, because we've made it so complicated to actually follow. And our hope is later in the year, is by having a really simple online form, we'll see far better sickness rates and sickness monitoring, and the organisation will be in a better position to kind of drive value out of people's attendance.
Okay, that good detailed answer there, Andy. Cynthia, any more offerings?
The other question that we have is that an integration of outside data in terms of, I guess, benefits or, let's say, payroll information that is outside of SAP, could that be integrated within the SharePoint or within this solution?
Okay, yeah, I could take that question, Andy. Yes, absolutely. In terms of integration of non-SAP systems, SharePoint being a front end, it's a web technology. We can interface through to SharePoint from any SAP or non-SAP system, whether it's simple workflows or processes from maybe you've got your expenses in a non-SAP system and you want to integrate those through from a workflow and notifications perspective into a SharePoint front end, or just as we saw with the Oxfordshire intranet page, that is absolutely possible.
Thanks so much, Jag, for that. And I believe with the time that we have, we can accommodate just 1 or 2 more questions. And I think the question is around versioning. In relation to the implementation, what SAP version and SharePoint version should we be in to be able to implement such a solution?
Okay, at Oxfordshire specifically, we're using SAP ECC. So it's essentially any ECC version. The SharePoint version is SharePoint 2010, and the Duet connectivity layer that we're using is Duet Enterprise 1.0 with Feature Pack 1. That's the solution implemented here at Oxfordshire. However, if you're on a SharePoint 2013 strategy where you've already upgraded to 2013, then we would be looking at using a SharePoint 2.0, and again the ECC version, the base version is fine, but we do need to customize or certainly install the Duet layer on with Feature Pack 1. It's a 7.02 NetWeaver version.
Very good.
Okay, so any other questions that we can that you fielded?
The last one actually that I have right now is in terms of the deployment time. I guess from the development to deployment, what is the timing and how quickly could we start deploying such a solution from a pilot perspective?
Okay, in terms of timing, certainly from an Oxfordshire perspective, we kicked the project off in December. We went live with the first couple of components about a couple of months ago now, in effect. So basically, depending on the complexity of your products, how far they are from Cordis Solutions base or out of the box offering, we could typically get an application live in about 6 weeks. That's the building infrastructure and deployment of the package. However, if there's more remediation work to do, bespoke components to build, then that will add on to that project timeline. So anything from 6 to 8 weeks is a typical timeline. And I think going back to the some of the lessons learned working with your BAU, business as usual, there's always resource restrictions of who is available at certain times of the month. So you need to build that into your project plan as such.
And a follow-up question, Jag and Andy, in relation to, I guess, differentiation between what is offered from Duet Enterprise and Cordis and over standard portal or SharePoint functionality.
Okay, Andy, you want to take that question in terms of, I guess it's more of an integration and ease of use and flexibility from a solution perspective that a Duet Enterprise base has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw sort of throughout the presentation is that if SAP is your main system, you want all of your data going through there, you want to expose the right data from there. How can you do that in a way that's going to be easiest for people to actually use? And I think the answer there is really around Duet technology. All of the other technology I've looked at is certainly catching up. So if you have SharePoint, if you can get it, if you've got an investment in it, you can seamlessly expose all of these parts of SAP through to the right people in your organization through your intranet with single sign-on, and people aren't having this experience of a separate application. And to my understanding, I think this is really the only way that you can actually do it currently in such a complete fashion.
And
Cynthia,
I'm sorry.
Time for maybe one more question.
Okay, so the last question that I have here is in relation to type of resource. What type of resources is needed to implement such a solution?
Okay, certainly from a technical perspective, we engaged a project manager from Cordis, which was myself. From the business side, we had the project manager Andy, who's here co-presenting with me today, and then the ICT, the technology project manager, was also engaged. So I guess we were the three guys at the top trying to push everything and make it happen. And then the troops on the ground, from a Cordis perspective, we had and we still have on site is an ABAP developer and a SharePoint developer. In the back office, we have a Basis guy, a NetWeaver guy supporting us, and that's pretty much from an IT perspective coming in from Cordis. From a business perspective, we've had some certainly business matter experts from Oxfordshire, and I think in total there's probably been in the duration thus far there's probably been 3 people engaged on and off.
I think we've had probably 3 people on a fuller time basis. You're going to need to draw in some people around internal comms and some of the change management, depending whether or not you've got those skills. You might have a small project office. And then it's really about getting those kind of HR experts and potentially finance experts to kind of align the processes, going out speaking to customers, different business areas if you have a diverse business areas. Just one final thing I wanted to say is that, we talked a lot about HR. Such is the strength of feeling about how successfully staff have adopted this new technology. We've got colleagues in procurement saying, well, actually, can we do something around procurement? And we absolutely can. Can we have our finance notifications and substitutions managed through this? So it's actually kind of broadening out and involving more and more people across the business who see this as a really good platform for adding other kinds of self-service functionality beyond HR.
Thank you, Andy. Cynthia, anything else you would like to ask? Anybody else got their hands raised?
No, I think we covered most, if not all, of the questions. Again, with that, I wanted to say thank you so much for all that has attended, or who's attending the webinar itself, and thank you to our speakers, Jag and Andy, for a very insightful presentation in this webinar today.
Thank you. So I'd like to add my personal thanks to Andy for co-presenting.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening and day to each and every one of you. Bye-bye.